This podcast is brought to you by the Disabled But Not Really Foundation, a local Kansas City nonprofit organization that pushes to instill a physical limitless mindset that breeds courage, confidence, and competence within the disabled community. You can follow and support Disabled But Not Really on social media or go visit their website at disabledbutnotreally.org. Their work and their mission is to really impact communities and make more people understand the benefits of inclusivity. So I was gonna say, no, just tell them leave mine up there. I'll just grab it when I get up there. But I was waiting on us to get on the call.
We will. I will tell my sister that we're live now, everybody. Hi, everybody. It's myself, April Jackson, Taylor Pinkston, the heart advocate, and Wesley Hamilton. How's everyone doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow. Friends, we are so excited. We're like on every platform. Taylor, I don't know if you knew this, but if I'm correct, and Marissa's on the back end could tell me, but we're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. You can stream on Twitter. And I'm not sure if we're live on LinkedIn, but we're on every platform. And
big things, big, beautiful things. Look at that.
There's my dog. Yes, you guys can tell we are definitely live.
Uh-huh.
Hold on a sec. I'm going to put it on hold and let Wes speak for a second.
It's always like that.
Dogs and 6-year-olds.
Yep.
That's our morning.
Yeah, got mine started. See?
You guys, we are so excited to be here. Yeah, that's what she said. And 50 more followers to qualify for LinkedIn Live.
Yeah.
Hey, friends. So go on LinkedIn, follow Open Up Pittsburgh. Also follow Wes. And Taylor, are you on LinkedIn?
I have been encouraged to be.
Okay, well, we're encouraging you.
And maybe
again.
this is the second time it's been encouraged. So maybe a third time will be like, okay.
Yeah.
Full confirmation.
Well, for me, LinkedIn has always been a great resource tool for business. A lot of my opportunities come from LinkedIn. A lot of my relationships come from there. And so I see it being a great value, especially even with your platform. Like I get on there and talk self-love a lot because a lot of people in the corporate world aren't feeding themselves the things that we're feeding, like just the social society, right? And so, no, I would highly encourage you just to get on there and just get, just kind of speak what you're going to speak with us today. Just see how it works for you, because I think that it's a message that can really help those people that are dealing with those that weight bearing, work life and things like that as well. So
that was your third.
Okay, I think that was 3. Thank you.
And I agree with Wes. I've got so many people who have reached out to me, a lot of my speaking engagements and some like big contracts that I received with consulting came through LinkedIn, even locally. So Taylor, everybody, she is a speaker, and she's, I was thinking of you this morning, like you've been living this life before the pandemic. I started following her on Instagram because I would just see you around, and this is another story. Like we haven't been in physical proximity with one another, but she is a therapist. She's a licensed social worker. She's a mother. She's a sister with an A and a daughter. And I've been following her via media through mutual friends and mutual acquaintances. And you were like boots on the ground, speaking to women, encouraging men and women to live their best life and to love themselves. You had the No Makeup Mondays. Remember you were doing that?
Yes.
And that was all before COVID even.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then COVID hit and you just amplified what you were already doing. And I think from my perspective, more people saw your face. And you've been like walking the walk. When you talk about somebody who's authentic, I look at you and see, like, you guys need to go on her Instagram. Taylor, we're like, look, this is how I look.
It's where I hang out. It's where I hang out the most.
Yeah.
Yes.
So can you tell everybody a little bit how you started the Heart Advocate? That is her handle, you guys. So if you want to follow her on Instagram or Facebook, she will be on LinkedIn soon.
Yeah. I absolutely will be on LinkedIn soon. The Heart Advocate did not start off as the Heart Advocate. It was a blog first. It was an opportunity for me to get real honest with myself. So I used it as a space to encourage, but really to encourage myself. I had went through 9 months of prenatal depression while I was pregnant with my daughter. And throughout that time, my therapist called to my attention that I wasn't writing, which is something I've always loved to do since I was, second grade. I've been writing. And when she brought that to my attention, it was like a light bulb went off because I didn't even realize it. Completely disconnected with self during that time. And so the Heart Advocate started off as a blog. It was called Ladyhood Journey. And I spent a lot of time sharing my story with college experiences because I graduated with my master's pregnant with my daughter. So during that time, it was a lot of self-loathing and beating self up and just being really harsh and cruel to myself about the choices that I had made throughout my college experience. And so from there, as I began to write and share my truth, I started doing Google searches about self-love because it was trendy at that time. People were talking about it, but everything just seemed really surface. And so I knew that it was more than those things, like, the pampering, this is how I look. And there was just more to it. I knew. And so when I did a Google search, I found the Path of Self-Love School. And in 2016, 17, I could not afford the programming. So I reached out to the administration and said, I need this. Can't afford it. What can I do about it? And they scholarshiped it to me. So I was able to get certified in the foundations of self-love through the Path of Self-Love School. And my life was changed forever. It became this thing that I knew I needed, but it became this thing that I had to share with others. Had to. And so I went to school for social work. So helping people, I knew I wanted to do that, but I never would have dreamed that it would be self-love therapy and reframing mental health with a self-love perspective and being the bridge between mental health and self-love and just so many things that have come out of a blog and just being honest with myself and, defying the fear and the shame that a social worker doesn't need social work and a therapist doesn't need therapy, like defying those things and saying it's okay that you need help too. So.
Wow, that really kind of have chills because there's so many things that I want to dive into. One, I hear just the story of advocacy for your own self. And, I encourage everybody who's even out there, ask,
Yes.
put ego aside, reach out to people. And for those in power who have the ability to support someone else, look at what it can do. It wasn't a handout, right? It wasn't a handout. It was support. When you talk about equity, that's what equity looks like.
Yes.
Giving somebody else the ability, the platform to stand on so they are equal with others. And I mean, my gosh, you just exploded. You've been on, you're in Pittsburgh Magazine, you're in the paper, and not just because it's not about clout. It's because you're telling the truth, and as Wes was saying, when we look on LinkedIn, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people, millions of people talking about, work and business and this system, this capitalistic system, but the care of self within that system, the system only continue to move forward if there are people to move it forward. So I appreciate that. And our topic is, it's springtime, everybody, right? March was the beginning of spring. It's raining where Taylor and I are. So April.
I've seen some trees with some flowers, so I have hope.
But there's hope.
I have hope.
April showers bring May flowers.
Exactly.
Every day. But that's what we want to talk about, like this idea of hope, and hope even when you're in despair, which I would love for you to share with people. How can you be both, and how can you work in both?
Transparency saved my life. Like, transparency is, I believe, the foundation of strengthening mental health. Awareness and honesty is the first step in anything, in change and growth. You got to be able to be honest with yourself about these things that are happening in your life. And when we're talking about healing work, which is, I believe, the journey that we're all on, we're all healing over something. I have a support group on Facebook called Healing Over Everything, because we can talk about everything that we're healing over in those spaces. And it's just important, I believe, not for everyone to share their story the same way, but to be honest with self, to speak to yourself in a way that you are open and honest, and not avoiding or hiding or diminishing your power, your essence, your worth. And when you're talking about just those low spaces, those despair-like spaces, it's so easy to forget your power. It's so easy to forget, everything that you've overcame, and the strength that you carry. And even in that, we have a tendency to just be so hard on ourselves, and this idea that we should be perfect in every nook and cranny of our lives. And so we're not allowed to feel down. We're not allowed to, feel these hard feelings, these feelings that are uncomfortable. So we mask it in a lot of ways, instead of just being real about the vulnerability of, I don't feel like myself. I'm not feeling my best. I'm feeling low. I'm feeling down. It took a lot of courage for me to ask for help to receive this certification. I wrestled with that because I felt like I should be in a space where I was able to do X, Y, or Z. And eliminating shoulds is so powerful. It's so powerful. You don't even realize how much you probably say should. And it's these rules that we have to break for ourselves in order to truly get to that space, that next stage. But it's always going to be rooted in how transparent are you with yourself, with others. And it's not about telling all your business. It's about being real and honest about what you need, what you desire. It's just so important when we're talking about renewing and shifting our mindset to not I'm always happy all the time space, but a helpful, positive space that always propels you forward instead of constantly looking back. Oh, you're muted, April.
I'm steady talking, right? I said, I was talking to you the whole time. But that's the key. Like, instead of constantly looking back. And what I didn't hear you say was, like, don't look back. That key word to me was constantly.
Yes.
Right? You learn from your past to move forward. Like, I majored, one of my majors was history, and it was, I love history. I love learning and reading and hearing about history because it informs what we do today. And it's so helpful in educating us on how we could possibly move forward. However, when we're stuck, right? When we're stuck in that past, and like you said, when we're constantly looking forward.
I talk to the people that I work with in self-love therapy about that, about how powerful self-reflection is. Self-reflection is so powerful that you can get stuck in reflecting. You could spend all your energy looking back and not actually moving into that next step of change that we talk about in the path of self-love, which is change in the moment. Actually making choices and decisions that shift what you used to do to what you are currently doing for who you're becoming, and we got to be careful with self-reflection so that it doesn't become this beating myself up space. It can hold you hostage.
Yeah, definitely. I do this reading, and it's this guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I I love like the way he talks, but he talks about if we wake up in the present with thoughts and memories of the past, we can never visualize the future. And he just talks about, like, as you said, like, it's good to kind of go back and reflect, but not stay there. And a lot of people, it's like you can't change your life being the same person.
Come on.
Right. And so it's like when people are thinking about the self-love and thinking about elevation and growth, they're not thinking that I need to wake up with all these things on my mind, but I also need to be different than the person I went to sleep as. Because I can't say that I want to love myself, then wake up and think about all the things I hate about myself. I can't get up in the morning and say, okay, well, I'm gonna get out here and I know that I want to change. I know I want to be, wealthy and all of these things. But as soon as I wake up, I'm thinking of all the barriers that I've had my whole life. And so it's like you wake up, you visualize the past, your memories that you had or your thoughts that you had when you went to sleep or the thoughts you have when you wake up. And so it's like, a lot of people are already thinking about the problems for the next day. And so instead of waking up and saying, okay, well, these are the way I find solutions. And of course, my concept or the way I see solutions in this is loving yourself first, right? And so you love yourself, become more aware of yourself, then you start to become more conscious of the decisions you make. And so it's like you have to speak those things to yourself, before you go to bed, so that when you wake up, you're now thinking of the present moment and the things you can do, but you're visualizing the future and where you're trying to get to. None of that has the past there, but it's there. It's like that's the lessons that you're learning from, but it's not the lessons you're supposed to keep going to. So yeah.
The lessons you're supposed to keep going to. I love it. Taylor, hearing you and just this whole conversation, Wes, too. When we hear self-love, and I reposted something from Adam Grant, who wrote Think Again. And, he's done a lot of stuff, but this idea of like toxic positivity. And that was pretty revelationary to me when I first heard about it. I was like, oh, because I used to be that happy-go-lucky and I wanted everybody to be happy. Like, don't be mad, be happy, it's okay. I didn't realize until well into adulthood that was a trauma response. I wanted the peace. I was in fear of what could happen out of conflict. And this term self-love, self-care, it could be equated with toxic positivity. And what you're saying is like, no, be true to how you feel.
Feel your feelings.
Feel your feelings.
Even the hard ones. It's so important. I do a lot of work with people individually because self-love is very individual. You see posts and it feels universal. There are these long checklists of things that you need to love yourself, things that you need to take care of yourself. And at the end of the day, that might not be what you need in this moment. So you have to do that individual work. I'm one of those, smiling faces, and I get it all the time when, I have these moments where I'm feeling my feelings and it's not what's considered to be positive. I get some pushback with that because it's like, I come to your page to be, lifted. And, when you're talking about this specific topic, it just doesn't feel very empowering or encouraging. I'm not here for you. I wasn't created to make you happy. That's not why I exist. I exist to share my truth, and I have intersections. You know, I am not just one thing. And one thing that I've been talking about a lot in this spring renewal is giving myself the permission to change. I've been saying that a lot because we even in our work start to box ourselves into this idea, you know, the heart advocate looks like this. No, the heart advocate has the space to look how she looks depending on where she's at in life. And so the permission to change the way I heal, the permission to change the way I cope, the permission to change how I self-love, these things are going to look differently over time. And I have to give it to myself and not, you know, put myself into this idea of who I think I should be. Again, with the defying the shoulds, it's just really important for me to not be who people believe I should be, to not, you know, put myself in a space where it's like I'm here, the heart advocate is here to please everybody and to, you know, I know that I'm not for everybody, you know, but I know that I also bring so much to the table. And if I'm authentic and staying true to myself, that's the purpose of this work. That flexibility, that permission is so important.
I love those words: flexibility, permission, giving yourself permission to change. I know like people are engaged with us live, so I'm curious if you guys put it into the chat. Like, what are you giving yourself permission to shift? Where are you giving yourself permission to change? That's one of the key things. And in this age of like brand yourself and be a product, you know, and stick with itness, there's something to be said for that consistency, stick with it, do the hard work, but give yourself flexibility, give yourself the ability to move and shift and get in the flow. I love that. And that was one of my questions to you, or just observation, this idea, like from what I see from my vantage point, when I, you know, look at you through the social media lens, you know, not even personally, you've had this ability to connect with everybody. Like you've connected with white folks, Black folks, people of color, women, men, LGBTQA double plus, you know, like that's beautiful. That is beautiful. And what I see is like you're touching into the essence of humanity, which is an equalizer. Has that always been that way?
And from like a kid, I can remember, you know, lunchtime, you know, some people just sit with their group. I sat at every table. I remember bouncing around all the time. Of course, you have your core, but I bounced around all the time. I've always been a bridge in some way. And I love to connect with people. And you know, it's always been important for me to uplift those who experience disparity. You know, it's always been important to me to advocate for the little man, so to speak. You know, I just believe in that. But I also believe that we can learn so much from each other when we are in safe spaces, and there's not enough safe spaces. And I like to see myself as a safe space. You know, when people talk to me, they can, you know, encourage themselves, heal themselves. You know, healers don't heal. We help people heal themselves. And so when I'm connecting, whether it's with an individual or a group, you know, creating that space is so important, that you can truly be transparent and honest with yourself. And it's great. Even my group, there's so many different types of humans in that space. And I can't say I know how I do it. It's a gift. It's a gift. And I'm so proud of that, to see different types of people all seeking this self-love work. It's so important to me. But it's always going to be my heart to make sure that my Black and brown individuals know self-love, because self-love is a privilege. And so it's not always accessible to us. We don't hear it, see it at home, in school, at church. It's not something that is, talked about so much. So that's why I offer free support and services, for that reason, because we all need it. It's not, for a certain class. Self-love is for everyone.
I like that you said, it's a privilege, and it is.
It is.
I speak a lot about just the hate that I had in my body just growing up, and you don't have people that freely love themselves. We talk about Black men and masculinity, vulnerability and things like that, disvalue the Black man when they don't embrace those things, because then you're trying to be this, not even a positive person. You're just trying to be a solid person, in a sense. You're trying to be the rock that everybody's designed you to be, that's unbreakable, right? And then it's like, well, if a rock is unbreakable, then it wouldn't be formed in certain ways through water, right? Like, and so it's like we need to take away and thinking that we're supposed to just be a rock our whole lives, but actually embrace the other elements of our lives, from vulnerability, self-love, like compassion, all these things where we embody it, and then we can embrace that privilege, right? Like, because it's like a lot of, and then it's where is that journey, right? Like I know a lot of people, when they think about self-love and the journey, they're overthinking where they have to go. You know what I mean? They're overthinking the change in itself when it's coming from the inside, right? Like you have to look in the mirror and accept that first. And so, so just kind of like what you said, it is definitely a privilege. I mean, I was 28 before I really understood what it meant, and now I speak about it highly, because I don't think our community has enough individuals, still speaking self-love. It's like we still react different and negative toward just small things, because we haven't looked inside. We don't know our value or our worth, so we react wrong, and so, no, I just wanted to make sure that I like, at least when we had these talks, I like those listeners to even get my perspective, so then they don't just thinking like, we're just on this top tier speaking these things. Like, no, we had to figure out, like, for me, self-love, I had to figure it out by being vulnerable. Like, if I wasn't vulnerable, then I wouldn't have figured out how to love myself. I would have still just felt like I need to be that rock that couldn't have a different form by water, right? So
it's the first step. If you're talking about transparency, you have to be vulnerable. If you're talking about being aware and honest, you have to be, vulnerable and willing to redefine what vulnerability means. It doesn't mean, that you are putting yourself in a space to get hurt, in a sense. It means being honest about your truth, where you've come from, what hurts, what helps, all of the nooks and crannies of you. Anger is the easiest emotion. It's like the easiest thing, when really, a lot of time the expression of anger, the root of it is hurt. I'm just hurt. But it's so much harder to say I'm hurt than I'm mad. I use the emotional wheel, and there's many of them on Google. If you just Google emotional wheel, I use them a lot in sessions, because you connect with people and say, how are you? And okay, all right, I'm fine, I'm good. And it's like, okay, let's pull out this emotional wheel. How are you really? And there's so many more words to describe what you're actually feeling. I think, like you're saying, Wes, if we could just get to a space where we're honest about what we're truly feeling, we can really, like, just build off of that. The conversation builds. When you say I'm feeling overwhelmed versus I'm okay, we're going to get more from that overwhelmed conversation than we would the okay space,
That is so true.
Just real quick, April, because I was just at the doctor the other day, and that's and again, just what you just said. It's like taking accountability and being a voice for yourself. And I just want to add this. And so, of course, being in a wheelchair, it's hard to get weighed. Wheelchair users, normally you go into like the doctor's office and they tell you everything about being healthy, but they don't even know how to get you on a scale. And so I've been constantly telling this doctor's office, like, I want to get weighed. I want to get weighed. So I went in there, and the therapist was like, I looked for it. I couldn't find it, but I guarantee you that it'll be there next week when you come back. And so she said, I hope that's okay. And I looked and I thought about it and I was about to say, yeah, I'm okay. And I said, it's not okay. Right. Like I said, no, it's not okay. And I started to speak more. And I said, you cannot have a facility like this and tell me that I'm supposed to accept myself in this position, but I can't have access to certain things so I can figure out what I need to fix. You know, and yeah, so just that was me. Like that was my first time, like just in that setting where I just didn't go along with what they went with. I really let them know that there was a concern, and I voiced my concern, you know. And so I just wanted to add that because that was the power just last week. And I really, by the time I left, you know, the therapist was more or less like, she just whispered in my ear and was like, thank you, you know, because I'm still learning, you know, and it's like, boom. So,
yes.
See, representation matters. And like all of our voices matter. And just when you think, and people who are watching, just when you think your voice might not matter, like I didn't know that Wes, I legit had no idea that my brothers and sisters who are physically disabled, wheelchair bound, were not getting weighed. Like that never even clicked with me until you said it. And then when you showed the post, and I was like, well, why the hell can they not have, I mean, and I'm not equating anybody to a dog, but damn it, if my dog can go in and step up on a scale that's big enough for all four of their paws to go on, why cannot human beings of every walk and non-walk get on a scale?
Oh, I got it. Because we talk about this all the time. You know, there's a medical, independent, and charity model. When you got people with disabilities, it's the confidence comes when you know. The lack of confidence comes when you don't know. And I believe that in the disabled community, there's a lot of force being pushed to make sure that we're still always going to be looked at feeling sorry for. And so it's like there are things to get you to a certain extent, but there's not things to help you overcome that, because it's the same way with Black people. Like they're opening doors, but they really want some to stay shut, because those ones that's being shut are the way that a lot of people are constantly making their wealth and everything around this world. It's the same way with disability. Like I have a disability, but until I start loving myself, I wouldn't have the life I've created, right? I'll be living a life that was designed, you know,
a disabled person.
Exactly. And so that's my awareness of, you know, when you tell me you've been 30 years in a game, that's anybody. Well, I listen to people like in the DEI space, and I always ask, like, you've been 30 years in a game, what did you talk about? Because these last 2 years, like, yeah, you're talking everything that we see. But if you've been in this game for 30 years, why didn't you push that door open? You know what I mean? Why didn't you see that door being open? You know, and so I hold people accountable for those things. But no, completely, like literally, y'all, it's just, I think that it is a lot of awareness that kind of goes into that. But we have to, I think it's just important for us to really go 10 toes down. And we got to understand, like, a lot of these systems are built to keep us in the positions that we in, rather you're Black, disabled.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the wealthy, you know, they contribute a lot of funding to a lot of causes that look Black and brown, and a lot of causes that look disabled. Right. Like there's a, like, but they're not going into their communities helping that cause. Right. No, because it's avoided, because the cause is I can feel more superior as a being if I have the ability to continue looking down on people. And the only reason why is because I have this privilege to love myself enough to see myself above here, but then I don't see these people understanding their privilege. So I'm gonna keep on not giving them the privilege. I want them to think that I'm the only one that deserves this privilege. And so now everyone's looking like, how do I get there? But I never went out to reach, because it was for me, because I look at these communities different, you know, and that's what I see a lot. That's why there's no scale in a rehab facility. That's why hospitals don't have these things that really serve, because it's like you push the bare minimum, one, because of lack of understanding and knowledge, but then you push the bare minimum because you've been taught to look at people not as equal, but to see yourself above, and now the only thing that you can give these people is the bare minimum, because if you give them all of it, then you fear them reaching another level than you.
And all of power.
And all that comes from what? Self-love, right?
So
through that, you start to step up that ladder, right? And I think that's what people fear. Black men, Black women, loving yourself is a scary thing to society, because a lot of us don't, but the ones that, just like on this call, like we've practiced, we figured it out, we become the voice for the voiceless. We become the ones that want to become, we're breaking down barriers, decoding systems, because we love ourselves enough that no one's judgment is going to defeat us anymore. And I think that it is important for us to keep pushing this, because I see it, I just see it from the communities I represent. I see it from so many different angles, and I was just listening to a show the other day, and it's like, even for us, these two causes are the same two causes that's still fighting. You know what I mean? Like it's causes that started 2-3 years ago that they've already been pushed past, got rights, got everything. But when you look at Black and disabled individuals, we're still fighting for something that's been here.
It's been here for a long time. And so many, I shot Wes an article earlier this week, because when we talk about like the focus on disability supports like anti-Blackness, you know what I mean? When we look at that, and I mean, in our communities, right? Like disability is rampant in the Black community, and not just because of like genetic disorders, but lack of, good medical support. Because the slave master and cut off somebody's foot so they wouldn't run away, and that kind of system has just perpetuated itself when you keep people oppressed and you don't give them means. Like you said, Taylor, you asked, you're like, I can't afford this by any stretch of the imagination. And that was not because you were Black and you just weren't intelligent enough to have money to make it. The system was created in the sense that it was really, I mean, you had just gotten a master's. You know what I mean? The system was created to not propel you through.
Talk about it.
And our wealth. Like when we look at our wealth, like we don't have an ancestry where we've had land and homes for generations. So when you say it's a privilege for self-love, I think what you're saying is almost revolutionary.
It's not something that I heard in my certification training. No one said self-love is a privilege. These are things that were realized through my practice, through my advocacy for it, through my teaching of it. And it is to know this, to know what self-love is, to know how to practice it, how to choose it, how to live it. There's so much privilege in that space. And we all deserve it. But who, like Wes is saying, is talking about it? Who has the privilege and actually using their voice to express it? And it's that self-advocacy, I think, that is so important in the work, because it empowers others to do the same. When I speak up for myself, when I, say that I need this and ask for it, maybe the person next to me will do that for themselves when they're in a situation where they need something and their needs are not being met. I think that that's so powerful, Wes, just you sharing that advocacy, because it's going to propel things, for change, for the better, for those who thought it and didn't have the privilege to say it. There's something about being an advocate. I mean, that's where the heart advocate name comes from. Self-advocacy, yes, but advocating for others to choose self-love as well, to choose it for yourself. But how can you choose something that you don't know?
Ooh, there you go.
So that is why, if you can't afford self-love therapy, you can join a free group.
Yeah.
You're going to hear me talk about things that I talk to anybody that I work with about. I think it's just so important to help people choose it, but you can't choose something you don't know. So knowing what self-love is how we begin to express ourselves in a different way and advocate for ourselves in a different way. One of the branches we say in the self-love world is self-expression. Being able to express yourself and allow the world to fully see you. But there's privilege in that. Not everybody has the privilege to allow every part of the world to see who they are without being reprimanded or beat down on about just existing. And so even in that, there's privilege. You know, I can't just express myself the same way that someone else can, you know? And that's why we hide and suppress and diminish, you know, dim our light in certain spaces because we don't have the privilege in every space. I think safe spaces are great, but, you know, a world that would be a safe space, the entire world as a safe space, a world full of self-lovers. We're talking dreams now. Like now we're talking dreams.
We are talking dreams. And that's not to negate the struggle. Like Wes said, all of us on here have had a modicum of success. It doesn't mean that we don't have fear, that we don't have challenges, that we don't struggle. It does not negate any of those experiences as well. It's just a constant journey to move forward.
Yes. And I think that's important too, April. I'm just glad that you mentioned that too, because there is this facade around self-love that it's always positive and it always feels good and it's always just happy and smiley. And I do my best, you know, on social media to share the things that are not so pretty.
And you do. You're like so authentic and real.
I try to, you know, I'm battling chronic hives over here. And, you know, there's just things that have happened and I try to show those things. Like, how can I love this new body? This body that's experiencing things that I never even knew about until it happened to my body. You know, like, how can I love myself then? And just knowing that you're worthy of love, no matter where you are, no matter what stage you are. You know, you don't have to be, you don't have to become, you don't have to do anything to be worthy of love. You're worthy of self-love right now, as you are, you know.
You're doing some of the work for free. I want you guys all who are listening, like, to follow Taylor, support her work, because it's valuable and you're of value. And not that money is going to signify just how valuable you are, but this is a thorn in my side. Like, this is the system, Wes. We are asked to do the work to support our brothers and our sisters. And we're struggling. Like, we're writing grants. We're spending 200 hours on a grant. And then some boards like, no, you don't get to get the grant because you have to show us proof. And it's like, I'm trying to help people who need help. You know, or you write a grant that's designated, you have to spend all the money in this way. Don't give salaries to your staff, because that's not what we want you to do. And I love that you are giving a resource away, because it's free. Knowledge should be free, but our system has created this cycle of where it's not free, or the most excellent resources will be withheld from people. So I'm advocating for people to, like, go and follow the Heart Advocate, to follow you, to support you in any way that they can. She's created all kind of stuff. Yes, y'all, you could hire us.
Just one thing I want to leave too is that how you was talking about, you know, being an advocate and really speaking to self-love. I believe that true advocates are the ones that can speak it from the heart, right? Like, and know their truth. But I also know that once you get to a point in life, you become the example of truth. And a lot of people don't have an example of the things they're trying to lead you to, because they're not even an example of it. you know. And so like if you do have the power to share that with other people and share it freely, share that process with them, because then it will allow them to see how human everybody is and how simple it can be for them to reach those levels. You know what I mean? And even though it's not simple, it's just more like we said earlier, there's no journey we're following. There's no yellow brick road for Black and brown people when it comes to self-love. You know, it's not like, oh, follow my path. If you follow this path, you're probably gonna, you got a whole lot of stuff. It's not gonna be a straight road, right? And so it's like, okay, well, where are the individuals that have made it to a point that can now become that example of truth by freely speaking of it, same way we're doing now, that now allows people to understand that it is okay. You know, I think a lot of people just see negativity as being okay, because as Taylor said earlier, it's just easier, right? Like it's just easy to be negative. It's easy to be upset, easy to not love yourself or be mad, you know. But the hard part is loving yourself despite the adversity you face in life, right? Like you can't love yourself and then allow certain things to trigger you, and then you go back into that hateful mode. If you actually love yourself organically and truly, then you start to love other people freely, and you start understanding those that don't love themselves and the actions that they're taking place because they don't. You know what I'm saying? Like when I find people that are very angry and things, like I see myself, right? Like I used to be like that. But now it's like, okay, I can either dial back, or I can just let them, or I can freely give them what I've learned, because I am that example of truth, you know. And so I think being an advocate is very important, especially in these communities. This is really like even holding me accountable more, because I've been wanting to talk a little bit more on self-love and things and just procrastinating. But it this really just helped me, because I lost someone at the beginning of the year due to mental health. And so it was hard for me, because I didn't expect it. Of course you don't, but I also felt like I was bringing value with my words and my truth. But, you know I can do more, you know? And so, and I think that that's just where everybody begins. You got to love yourself first to be able to go into the world and be who you are. So let's take that first step.
I've wrangled Taylor in, you guys. We have a brick and mortar space for those who are in Pittsburgh, in a town called Lawrenceville, which I always laugh because my friends who are in Atlanta, there's a Lawrenceville, Georgia, but in Lawrenceville, I wrangled her in today. I heard her, I have it recorded, that she and I are going to get together. Maybe Wes will bring you down to like have a workshop or just time with people. So I'm going to put that as a 2022 goal. Good. Awesome.
You got me.
You can follow her. Taylor, we want to talk about, and I'll let you think on it. I already asked you, but Wes and I have been trying to share what we do in spaces when we're, by ourselves. We're trying to read. We're not trying to. This is just what we do. And so we're sharing it with this space. And I just have to also say, you guys, I did not give Taylor any kind of script, like her saying, voices, like she's used all the language, and it's like, yes, like it's soul connection. But I want to share with everybody like what we've been just doing as far as personal development. And I'll start real quick, and then you guys can think about it. But I've been reading this book, The World of Stories. And as I was going through, so I'm an integral leadership development, personal, professional development coach. And a lot of what we do, we focus on narratives, and we create our own narratives. And the world is just all about stories. And this is like a real short, quick book. It's David R. Loy. I don't know if everybody would be interested, but there's a quote in the beginning: you get older and you realize there are no answers, just stories and how we love them. And when I think about renewing, like, what is your new story? Give yourself permission to write a new narrative for yourself, and literally write it, like journal it, write it down. We talk about vision. A vision is really a story that you've created for yourself that's here. It's probably elevated a little bit. It's moved forward from where you are. So that's been my read for the last couple of weeks. And I just wanted to drop that with you. Taylor, we want to hear from you. also?
So, to be honest, my read has been the DSM-5, because I just I've been studying as of late. So I've been studying social work, materials, and things. So that has been the biggest portion.
Can you share with people what the DSM is so they know?
So it is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So social workers know this book, and you see how thick it is. All mental disorders, and they actually just recently updated it. So this is not the latest DSM. This is the 5th edition, but it's
she's educated. If you go to her, she knows stuff.
So, now that I am a licensed social worker, that book is going to be used more than I even realized. But I also have been getting into the Desire Map. This is by Danielle Laporte, and there's like a journaling part to it. Like this it's like a 3-book collection, and it's all about desire for self, and really expanding again that permission to change, the really diving deep into desire, and it helps reveal at least for me, what I've been taking away is it's just the revealing of desires that you didn't know you had. So the Desire Map is a great one. Again, it's 3-part. This one is the actual read, but there's also like questions that Danielle asks throughout the book, and you document and go through it. So this is one that I love. It says, a guide to creating goals with soul.
Ooh, thank you for sharing that. I had definitely pulled that up.
I'm also I've been really listening to the Friend Zone podcast. It's fun and comedy, yes, but one of the podcasters on it, Fran, she is so, healing, self-love, mental health focus, and she just brings something to the table that's very introspective. And I actually went back. I'm currently listening to like 2018 episodes. I started from the very beginning when they started. I think it was around like 2016. And just been listening, and each week, they put out different focus and topics and things like that. But I just love Fran. I love Fran. Hey, Fran. Hey, if anybody follows her, she's always just talking about something related to healing, loving yourself, willingness to learn who you are. Very big into the self-awareness and self-discovery. So that's a great podcast, The Friend Zone. If you want to laugh and also get some insight, there's some great stuff there as well.
Thank you for sharing that, because I was definitely looking for new podcasts. I have all that down, and you guys will share all these resources. Like, we'll share all the resources Taylor just shared with you all, and what I shared. And Wes, you get to piggyback off of that.
Yeah, the book I'm reading right now, or at least been getting into, is The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. I'm big on just Napoleon Hill and his books and his philosophy. So just really just going in and listening to, because even like books like that, when you find like people that are successful, it comes with a lot of awareness. So even though, everybody know that if you want to hide anything from anybody, you just put it in a book, because a lot of people don't pick it up. So for me, I make sure that I reflect on the past leaders that did create something for themselves, and then understand their process, which allows me to be more confident in my own. So I think and this is a book that I've had, and I just kind of went back into it. So I'm just kind of going back into my readings that I've read before, just to see if I can grasp and articulate it a little bit different now that I've grown a little bit more. So that's kind of
I like that. Like you said, now that you've grown a little more and will continue to grow. And I think that's kind of the underlying message, giving yourself permission in this time of renewal, right? To continue to grow. A tree doesn't I don't know. I don't really think trees, if they stop growing, then they die.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. It's seasons. It's seasonal, but it's always, I think if I've learned anything within these last 2 years in the middle of this pandemic is that you got to get comfortable with change.
Mm-hmm.
Got to get comfortable with change. Things are always changing. You're always changing. So checking in with yourself is constant, very much going inward is constant, but your language is going to change. How you read things and see things, like Wes is talking about. You read something now, read something in 5 years, it's going to hit different, because of how you've changed and grown in your insight. So it's just so important to get comfortable with that idea and not boxing self in. That to me is renewing.
This was wonderful. Thank you all for filling my spirit this Sunday morning. Taylor, I'm super excited this week. I'm going to start writing this up outline. I know what she's getting roped into.
Yes.
All of you guys out there, thank you for coming into my home, Taylor's home, and Wes's home. We've been real organic here with family and pets and our physical, bodies. And Taylor, it's just a beautiful experience to start thinking of giving ourselves permission to change and loving ourselves in new ways and in old ways, just giving ourselves permission to do that. Thank you. Any closing words from Wes and Taylor?
No, thank you, Taylor. Again, just for sharing your mind and your thoughts with us, and then allowing other people to see how good it feels to want to bring in love into your life. You know what I mean? Like, again, just really reflecting on that privilege part. It's like we're just the example of what you should follow, because it feels good. You want to feel good, you got to do good, and so
I should, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate you both, April and Wes, for your insights. It's just I love having these types of conversations. We need them more and more and more and more and more. I do not take lightly that, I'm an example. You both are examples of what self-love looks like. And it's, we're a part of the group of individuals to spread the self-love. And people will talk about self-love being selfish. And you Google it and you see these words, but how is it selfish when we're doing stuff like this, when we're spreading it? We're inviting people in and not hoarding this information. We're spreading it everywhere we go. And I think I'm just proud to be a part of that community. And it's growing rapidly. And I'm proud of that. So thank you both for inviting me back. This was a great start to a Sunday. I hope everybody was blessed and received something today.
Yes, same. All right. With that, everybody, thank you. And we will see you soon. Thank you for joining us and listening to the podcast. If you would like more information on the guests and the stories that you've heard today, and to hear stories from others, subscribe to the podcast. We also invite you to subscribe to Open Up Pittsburgh's newsletter, as well as our YouTube channel. We want you all to take care, and remember to make your own stories. This is April. Peace.